we keep talking about leapfrogging in Nigeria, but in reality, and if we think about most of the businesses represented here, the plastic card or the virtualization of the plastic card with the traditional 10-digit or 16-digit PAN is still core to what we do. So plastic is hanging around like some toxic waste that it does in the oceans. Is it here to stay, or are we really going to leapfrog and do something exceptional? And I think Kemi from Visa, the founder of the plastic cards, what do you think about that?
Indeed, we are the founders of Plastic Card. So it's an interesting question. The way we see it at Visa, we think that at this point in time, plastic will still stay. We think that, especially when we look at the fact that we remain within a global world, different markets, different geographies will be at different stages at every point in time. Even if in Africa we see a shift towards mobile, it doesn't necessarily mean that every market will catch on. Now, what that means is, and we know Nigerians, we continue to travel, we continue to trade, we continue to have businesses across the world. What it means is that if the acceptable form of payment is cards in the other part, in the other geography, you still need to make a payment. However, so we can also kind of see an increasing shift towards devices, connected devices. So which means that at some point, even those cards will be virtual. So if I can make my payment through other channels, then I don't necessarily would need the card eventually. So we have the Samsung Pays, we have the Apple Pays. So at some point, there will be a time that I think, and this is my view, that the cards may actually be displaced, but it's not going to be drastic. So it's going to be gradual, and it's going to be at varied stages at different times in different markets. That's the way I see it.
Thanks, Kemi. So I guess E and Shola, I'm not going to ask what the difference between Flutterwave and Paystack is.
Don't do that.
But I think we'll find out in your answers. So, E, is the plastic here to stay? What's your view on this?
I guess I have a slightly different view with respect to plastic, because I think that ultimately economics rules the world, right? And the plastic just doesn't make sense in low-income markets from an economic point of view. You know, you think about the cost to serve, the physical logistics that are involved, the maintenance fee, right? You know, I have 3 plastics in my pocket. All of them are chipping away. They no longer work. So I've just basically reverted to USSD, which is where I think the future is, right? People are leveraging their phones to be able to make payments, leveraging simple tools that they don't necessarily need a lot of education on. Just like we used USSD to recharge our phones, we're using them now with much shorter codes to continue recharging our phones. And I took a taxi all the way here today. I paid the driver with USSD, right? I was at the embassy just earlier today to apply for a visa, paid the guy with USSD. So I think that even today, there is a massive shift already, drastic shift if you ask me, right? From plastic to USSD. And I think the truth of the matter is here, plastic never really took off. I remember I was sitting in the audience when Okwe Adeoye from IntoSwitch was making a speech the other day, and he was explaining that they only have 240,000, I believe, active cards a month in a market of 33 million cards. So it really doesn't matter. What most people are doing with cards really is just going to the ATM and taking cash out. So cards never took off in this market, so it's not a question of whether or not we're going to leapfrog. We just have to find our own way. And I think that's what a lot of us, if you want a difference between Flutterwave and everybody else, we're very focused on what that other way is, right? You know, our cards business is a great business. You know, it's probably like 40% of our revenue, but the business we really focus on, our USSD business, We really focus on our bank account payments business, our inflow business. Those are the businesses that we really focus on.
Thanks, He. So, Shola, what's the future of payments?
Oh, well, I wanted to just comment on the plastic, non-plastic thing. So, hi, everyone. My name is Shola. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Paystack. Paystack is a payments company. So, for me, I think like plastic is the closest representation to cash. You know, cash is really very simple. Like, you bring it out, you pay, you collect it, there are numbers on it, and all that. And like, for digital payments to like displace cash, it has to be easier. It has to be cool. I know that plastic, like, probably we have about maybe 10 or 15 years more on plastic. So I won't say it's like the far future, but I'm one of those few people that I think about the present. I think like we have very huge problems. I think there are already 30 million cards produced already. And people are using it on the ATMs. People are withdrawing money every day and across the ATMs. Why not make it work? You know, and I have a card, it's not working. What's the next thing to do? Why is it not working? You know, so the simple questions we need to ask, and just asking those questions and seeing that the answers are there. You know, cards, the card system, there's PCI DSS security standards. The banks already have ISO 8587. Like, all these standards are there already. You just need to read. In fact, if not for cards, I won't be here. There won't be Paystack. I just need to read online and see how does cards work? Like, it's so democratic. Like, there's so many ways. Visa is a global company. They have everything, you know. So my thinking is that cards are simple. There's a standard already, 16-digit card number everywhere. There's CVV at the back. You can educate people. You can work globally. Why not make it work? And the thing about payments, in fact, when you ask me the question, what is the future of payments? I think there are two things. The very first one is fragmentation. I think it's still going to get fragmented. I think people are going to pay anyhow they want to pay. You know, I don't want to force you to pay with one payment method. You know, even in cash, people pay with 1,000 naira notes. People pay with 500 naira notes. You know, so there's going to be that fragmentation in digital payments, and it will continue to happen. And the next thing is aggregation, and that's where Paystack comes in. You know, someone has to figure out this fragmentation. Like, Facebook is going to come with their wahala. WhatsApp will come with their troubles. Everybody will come with their wahala. But someone has to figure this out. Someone has to help the merchants. Someone has to help the business. Someone has to, you know, just make it easy. And for us at Paystack, that's how we think about payments. We think we just want to reduce that friction. We think there's a lot of friction now. There's so many things causing friction. There's so many questions we can ask. And there's so many solutions. Like, solutions are there. In fact, some of the solutions, we will come up with it today. You know, so yeah, thank you.
So leverage what we have and help bring them to scale through aggregation, but ultimately let the customer decide how they want to pay.
Exactly, thank you.
I think, you know, E mentioned USSD, and it reminded me of a conversation we had with E and Dibanj back in the office a couple of months ago, and it was a heated debate. He said, USSD is the future. We said it can't be the future. We said USSD is the future. It's not just the present. It's not a bridge. It's here to stay, and it has a big future. So I'm not going to ask you that question. I want to know what Ehoza from Interswitch thinks of that, because, you know, a few years ago you spent tens of millions of dollars, I think, on buying a Vanso, a mobile platform. Was that a good investment? Is it all about USSD, or is that richer experience going to come through mobile?
Thank you for that question. So my view, basically, and I speak for Interswitch, we wouldn't see USSD as a competition to the mobile app, and I'll explain why. The USSD channel definitely serves its own segment, serves its market, and it's very fast and convenient. Now, you get things done in a snap. But however, if you want a richer experience from a customer perspective angle, the mobile app enables you to do that, not just from a personal perspective, also from the business side, because the likes of, what's it called now, Diamond Bank, your mobile app, we built it, right? And you've built that app based on the lifestyle you've tied that app based around the lifestyle of the customer. Now, if I am going to spend something or buy something on that mobile app, I have the opportunity to see something else perhaps scrolling, what's it called? A scrolling advert comes up and says, yeah, would you like to buy a Mevo ticket for your wife? You know, you can do that right here and then. Now, the experience, it's better. You don't do that, or you can't find that on the USSD channel. It has its market, it has its reach, and it's efficient in that regard. But in terms of a better customer experience and a wider reach, I think the mobile app allows you to do that. And so, yes, to answer your question, we made a huge investment in Vanso. It's a fantastic investment, and we are reaping the fruits.
Okay, so you're on my side. E, why is USSD the future?
For me, you know, as someone who cares about technology and scale, right? One thing I just quickly figure out is it's really, the first principle is to make something that people want. And the people have voted literally for USSD. And it's not difficult to figure out why. The first is the ease of distribution. The truth of the matter is we have to start thinking much more deeply about the walled gardens that app stores are, and the fact that we stand no chance except we spend crap tons of money on marketing in those app stores. And there's no chance that we're going to have like a Nigerian app store or something. And even on the Nigerian app store, what are the top apps? You're going to have Facebook and Google and all that. USSD is an innovation that really does cut through all that BS, right? Because it can be a rich experience. It's just a function of being able to do a better job of designing it. And the honest truth is, the way I see USSD and some modulations of USSD that actually morph into the app and into progressive web applications is that it's basically we're in the early age of the internet in my mind, right? So you're in an early age of the internet, and it's still like TCP, IP, you know, like you got to know the exact numbers of the domain name that you want to get to. I think that where we're going and where we're experimenting a lot at Flutterwave is in building a richer experience around USSD, right? That actually allows us to give you the full complement of an online interaction, but more efficiently, because people don't want to spend their whole lives paying for something. They just want to pay and get out, right? They don't want to, but they want it to be secure and they want it to be personalized. The second big thing about USSD that I appreciate, perhaps because we have a lot of expertise in it and we see raw data, is because it gives you a much better sense of a person's actual patterns than most traffic measurement devices do today, right? Because I have your phone number that you use to do most transactions. I can link it to your bank account and other cards that you use, right? Other payment methods that you use. I can also figure out who you're paying, right? And how often you like to pay that person. There's a lot that the PAN, doesn't quite give you in that respect. But on the same device that you receive information, I also can make you buy something. That's powerful. And that's why, in the ultimate proof of the technology, you have billions of naira of airtime sales happening over USSD versus any other kind of web or mobile channel today. So I think the people have voted. It makes common sense. Are we going to actually invest the time and the effort and the research like Flutterwave is doing to understand the channel very deeply and capitalize on it? I don't know, but we're making that bet. And so far, we've been able to make money making that bet. So I don't know. That's how we think about it.
We all like making money here. And I think, so you heard it first at Techfest that USSD is the next internet. So thanks, E. So over to Emeka from PayLater. PayLater.ng are really using technology to democratize access to finance. And we hear some pretty big numbers of loans that you're giving out every day. So I sit here and, I'm a retail banker, and should I be worried about what you're doing? Are you just eating our lunch? Should I be scared of you?
Not yet. I think, first of all, if I can just say something about the payments.
Yeah.
I think one of the conversations, or one of the big conversations about USSD or the app, or even progressive web apps and so on, is a question of really what's fit for purpose. So you have a lot of payment platforms and a lot of payment schemes that have very narrow focuses. So USSD works fantastically well for buying airtime and making very directed types of payments. But where you have to have that kind of back and forth conversation, where you have to have that kind of interaction, we're not there yet, where you can say, okay, you know what, USSD actually makes sense, and we can say, okay, in the next maybe even 10, 15 years, it will usurp the kind of plastic, or whether it's web apps and all that kind of stuff. I think I agree with E in the sense that there will be those sort of advances where we're wrapping stuff around USSD to make it a lot more accessible, which sort of goes into the area of the kind of apps that we already have, which are more rich and vibrant. But obviously, from that USSD perspective, the payload is a lot smaller, but you're trying to get the kind of interactivity that you have with the more heavy apps that you get from the App Store. So I think there's going to be a meeting ground somewhere in the middle where you kind of get the portability of USSD, but you're able to get some of the richness that you get in current apps. Progressive web apps is beginning to do that, and I think there's a level even below that you have really, really light payloads that you can use to get across a lot more information a lot faster, which is really what USSD promises. So for us anyway, we see a lot of, will I say, fit for purpose uses of all the different platforms. So in areas where we have customers who don't really have a lot of access to things like ATMs or good internet speeds, they're making payments using USSD. At other places where, again, internet, maybe we're not so familiar, they're going to ATMs and actually using their cards, plastic, and actually making payments. So for us, to a large extent, we don't care what they use, as long as they actually make the payment. But I think there's still a lot to be done from the payment side to say, you know, this is the one that's going to win or not. I don't think there's a clear Facebook of any of the payment platforms where it's just like, you know what, we're going to focus on this and everybody else, just, it's over.
So as long as you get your money back, it can come from anywhere.
Yeah, for us, as long as we get our money back, then that's the most important thing. That's also the most important thing to the customer. Yeah. The customer is saying, I really don't care what the platform is. I really don't care what the channel is. I want to make a payment to you or somebody else, and I want it to work like that, which is why there's a lot of appeal in that instantaneous speed from USSD. Back to your question.
Yep. So do we have a future?
I think obviously, same way that we're partnered with pretty much everyone on this panel now, relationships have to happen with the banks as well. There are certain things that the banks can do better than we can, and there are things that we can do better than the banks. We're a little bit more nimble in terms of getting features out and getting products out. But we can't overlook the scale that the banks already have in terms of the already existing number of aggregated customers, the access to finance, that's very important for us as well, and actually the access to data, which exists a lot. So I do believe that there's going to be a lot of partnerships as opposed to, you know, we're going to have your lunch, so to speak, at least for now.
Thanks, Emeka. So I think we've all been talking about payments in the context of payments in Naira. So I think I'd like to ask Kemi first. Are we still going to be paying in Naira, or are we going to be paying in Ethereum, Bitcoin? What's the future for cryptocurrency with Visa?
So cryptocurrency today runs on a technology. And that technology itself is blockchain. I think with every form of technology we've seen anywhere in the world, it keeps evolving until it gets to a point that we all know what we want to do with it. So when you look at blockchain, it's a technology that we as Visa, we're actually looking at. So in 2015, we did launch, we announced the B2B Connect solution, which allows financial institutions to make B2B payments, and this rides on blockchain technology. This we're already beginning to pilot with a few financial institutions across the world. Also, we invested in 2016 in Chain Inc., a startup blockchain technology. So as an organization, yes, we are looking at blockchain because we think that there is some value in it. If we go to Bitcoin, however, that's a different ballgame. So a very good example. I read somewhere that you'll probably process 7 Bitcoins in a second. Now, at this stage, so of course, one thing we've also come to learn in technology is that things keep evolving, things keep getting better. But at this stage, there's no value in that. On our platform at Visa, we process 65,000 transactions in a second. So there's no additional value we're getting from that. What we see today with Bitcoin and all the other stuff, cryptocurrencies, is that it's seen more like a speculative investment opportunity and nothing more. So tomorrow, who knows? But at this point in time, that's our position. We continue to look at how can we, as Visa, continue to ensure that payment is more seamless, payment meets the needs of consumers. So just to speak a bit on when you asked the question on future of commerce, we think that there are 3 key things that are going to drive future of commerce. One is user experience, and I think Shola made mention of that extensively. It's around that value you're bringing to the customer. That's going to be the bedrock. There's also going to be the aspect of data. Data is going to influence even the user experience because it's going to ride on all the data you can gather to ensure that you're fine-tuning that experience for the customer, and each customer is seen as a unique individual. So a very good example today in our platform at Visa, we've been able to develop technologies within our systems that unique PAN that is for an individual consumer, you can have a customized offer. So not just an offer for the bank, but an offer for a particular individual based on all the data we've captured. Again, part of what is going to influence the future of commerce is also the data privacy. So there are concerns around privacy. I understand that over the last 24 hours, all the questions we've had at our booth has been around data privacy. So how do we also ensure that, as institutions, we're using that data for the right purpose? And that's why at Visa, we're also engaging regulators, letting them understand, because yes, sometimes it's a bit worrisome. We know the concerns that came up with Facebook and others. How do we ensure that regulators are comfortable? The data we capture, the data we gather at Visa is that one thing we're very proud of is that we appreciate the data, we respect the data, we protect it, and we ensure that it's only used to enrich customer experiences and security. So those are some of the pieces, and I think the last one, of course, is collaboration. That's the third key thing that's going to drive future of commerce, and that's what we love to do. We continue to work with everyone. We continue to work with fintechs. We continue to see how we can open up our systems and ensuring that via APIs, fintechs can connect and continue to create solutions that would also, going back to the first point, enrich the user experience.
Thanks, Kemi. So I think we're running out of time. I mean, this is a panel that could go on for hours, but the audience is made up of a lot of SMEs, a lot of users of payment services, and I think it's fair that we get some questions out from the audience about their experience of payments and their view on the future of payments in terms of what we want to see next. So we're going to hand it over to the audience for the final questions to this panel. Okay, well, in my near vision, I think we have Wally over here, so we have CNBC questions.
Since I get the opportunity, it's the last panel. A lot has been said about big data, and I am wondering to what extent financial institutions and maybe even payment platforms are trying to get the information required to analyze people. So for instance, I was just saying to myself that if I open a bank account today, I'm expecting that given the value of my social media interaction and activity in terms of what it can tell about me, I expect that the bank should be asking for my do I have a Facebook account, or what's my Twitter handle, and so forth. So, such that you can now begin to aggregate that information and then begin to either using, interacting with the providers of the platforms to analyze me as a customer and use that information to now get a sense of what I can do. So we've said a lot about big data, but I just get a sense that we have not yet gotten to the point where we're actually processing the data that is available. I want to get your reactions to that.
Okay, so I think I'll ask Emeka to answer that question because he's using our social profiles to lend to us, so we all want to know.
All right, so the first answer, or so the answer to your question is yes, we are not. We are not using a lot of the data that we actually collect from different touch points with the customer. One of the problems that we see definitely as a company, One Finance, we see that there's a lot of dirty data. So even in the places where you're supposed to have trustworthy data, so you pull someone's BVN, and that person's birth date is different from what they've given you. And you have a conflict between what a financial institution that you're supposed to trust is telling you about a customer, and that customer is telling you about themselves. Then the customer goes to a court and tells you, I've just sworn an affidavit that says that the information held by my VVN is wrong. So there's a very interesting problem that we're finding. We're collecting huge amounts of data. That's the first thing. Yes, we're able to collect the data. The data is there in some places. The first question you have is a problem of trust. Can I actually trust that this data is actually reflecting the truth about this person that says the data is about them? And then there's the correlation issue. So I've collected your data from Diamond Bank, for example, and then you supply me with your Facebook profile, and it's a completely different name. Your Wale on your Facebook profile, but your name is John Charles Fayemi on some other platform. So making all the connections and actually now even saying, okay, for the first part, this data set is about this person. The next thing is, what can I tell that actually makes sense? Does it mean that you should be able to borrow more money? Does it mean I should extend a line of credit or an overdraft to you? So the dimensions are a little bit more complex than we have in the West, where the trust issue for the most part has been removed. You can check someone's date of birth from the DVM or whatever, and you can trust that that information is going to come back, and if you cross-check it with their passport information, it's going to be exactly the same thing. So we are, in my opinion, at the tip of the iceberg here in Nigeria in terms of being able to use the data that we're actually collecting on our customers and create feature-rich offers, in our case anyway, for them, or create even really interesting products that are speaking to their particular needs in the general sense.
Great. And I think that's something really important. We've got to give you a reason to give us your social ID. So I think for all of us, we need to give you added value for giving us your Twitter profile, giving us your Facebook profile. So I mean, at Diamond Bank, we're following you, Ali, so don't worry. You don't need to give us the handle. We've already got you, but we need to give you something back. So it's all about loyalty, richness of experience, and relevance of offers. So we have time for some more questions. Please direct the question to anybody on the panel.
Hello. Okay, my name is Kiki. I have a question. I mean, so far so good. There's been innovations in fintech in Nigeria. You hear of Paystack and the rest. I'm looking at how there is inclusivity when we're trying to upgrade payment solutions for, say, people living with disability. People who won't be able to do a retinal scan may not be able to pay with the new scan to pay, things like that. How much inclusion do we have for the future of payments?
Would you like anybody in particular to answer that for you, or shall I do a lucky anyone?
Yeah,
Shoulders first.
Yeah, so I think that's a very beautiful question. There's something happening called open banking. I'll just talk about that slightly. I think so. The direct answer to your question is that we're not there yet. I'll admit we're also like a culprit. But I think like there's a general standard around open banking now, where platforms can like be platforms and people can build on it. You know, so and that's how it works outside Nigeria. People have built mobile banking apps for other banks for the blind, mobile banking apps for other banks for the and all that. So the way we think about it at Paystack now, I'll be honest, I think we're still like the house is still on fire, and there's some very major problems we're still trying to solve. I think we're going to be done with solving those fundamental problems very soon, and then we'll be able to like go the next extra mile. But having said that, like I said, there's an open banking initiative happening. I think Flutterwave is there, Paystack is there. Most of the banks are trying to be there. And the thinking is that we will build these platforms. Our APIs will be available. And if you are like, if someone feels very strongly about the fact that, oh, this doesn't exist, the person can actually just build it and make it work, you know. So, and I think that's how it is.
So that's a great business opportunity. So I think we'll see it here at Techfest 2019. Someone's going to come and demo it on the stage.
And I think just to add to that, I think one of the things we also see is the fact that authentication will not be a one-way only. So increasingly, you would have the various options. You can have the biometric data that can be via your thumbprint, you can be retina, you can be voice. And then that's why we also say that the future of commerce is really collaboration. We don't necessarily need to build everything. So we could, what's the possibility of having the Google Assistant working together with the Diamond Bank app and ensuring that somehow we kind of work things out for maybe the blind person. So those are the kind of things that I think is good. We're going to continue to see over the next couple of years.
Yeah, can I say just one quick thing? I think for us at Flutterwave, we've actually done quite a bit in our lab around these problems. So for example, we're making it easy for, we have technology in our lab around being able to actually buy credits using an Alexa, right? And we're also looking at some technology around being able to use your phone to be able to make payments just by some auditory things. The biggest challenge that we often find, actually two big challenges that we find, is that there needs to be some technology at the merchant till for these things to be able to work with whatever we build, right? And oftentimes there isn't a lot of incentive for banks to invest in that technology. So we're probably looking at, in the next 3 to 5 years or sooner, finding a partner who can help us develop those interfaces ourselves. The second thing is really the fact that one thing that we've actually learned the hard way is that a lot of the tech that you see in payments today is built for people like us. So people that look like me and, Shola, and it's nice, but, the other day I spent some time with, I don't know whether to call them a microfinance company, but basically they're called Good, I forget the name, but basically it's in Ejigbo. So I went to Ejigbo, and they basically have, literally they do a microfinance bank, but it's like literally human beings collecting money, It's very, very human, very manual, but they're a big bank, by the way, huge bank, 11 billion in assets, 40 billion in loans, and no one knows about them. I think it's Good something. I forget the name. Good Grooming Center. Sorry, Grooming Center. But oftentimes when we come with our fancy tech, first of all, no one can speak English, so that's the end of the conversation. So one thing that we've kind of become more comfortable with is, can we actually build technology for the people who are actually delivering the service? And that's why one of our fastest growing business lines is actually agency, even though we're not an agent business, right? We just basically enable agents to do a better job of collecting payments from customers and giving payments to customers. And we, you know, there's a lot of work that we're trying to do in that area of how can we give technology, open technology tools to people who are actually doing the work of supporting, you know, people who have physical disability or physically excluded or financially excluded from enjoying payment services. So we're doing more research in that area, and you know, as time goes on, we'll continue to push more products out in that direction with our bank partners.
Thanks.
So just to add, I think one very critical area we aren't looking at is security. Now, if you are looking to build some form of payment experience for the blind, what kind of security are you looking to build into that against someone who can hack into that blind man's or blind woman's account, as it were? So I think we need to be very careful. It's nice to have, in my opinion. Are there many people? Again, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to say your question doesn't make sense. It does. But in terms of the reach and in terms of how big of a problem is this vis-a-vis security, which is very strong. I'm sure you don't want to tell the blind person that your account just got hacked because I'm trying to create some payment experience for you. So I think we need to be very careful in terms of what we need to build and how we need to build it.
So it's an opportunity for someone to come up with a solution that's safe, and obviously, you know, it might not be the biggest business opportunity, but it's very important to somebody out there. Emeka, last thought.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, I think all the conversations highlight how big the problem is and how the lack of any kind of standard is actually hindering this process significantly. Because at the end of the day, if Flutterwave is going to develop something in Flutterwave Labs, it's not necessarily going to be along the lines of what Paystack or some other payment.
We open everything up.
Every
single thing that we have is literally an API. So
but
everybody can use it.
No, but that's what I mean. I know that you have that standard of openness, right? But at the end of the day, there's still people who are thinking, I'm using Flutterwave's platform, or I'm using Flutterwave's APIs. Whereas in other parts of the world, you have standards that are generally set by a body outside the businesses, in terms of the profitable businesses, that say these are the minimum standards you need to meet for people with hearing issues or sight issues or whatever. And I think if that happens independently, where companies can say, okay, you know what, we're going to do this together, then it would go a long way to actually speeding along the adoption of a lot of accessibility features in apps.
So I think there's a big role for the regulator to play in this space to define those standards. And I think we've already heard the regulatory sandbox is being released as well.
There's a regulatory sandbox, which Flutterwave played a very active role in bringing to life. There are obviously still challenges with it because, you know, one thing I wanted to even talk about quickly is just the fact that getting the regulator to solve problems for the industry is not very productive, I've found, right? We have to have the ability to just come together and say, this is what we're going to do, and then do it. The problem with the regulatory hammer is, and as I've found, working with the regulator, is the fact that, you know, oftentimes they don't necessarily always have the most capable folks internally to understand the market dynamics and what actually is realistic to implement. And so it typically doesn't work. So I would say, look, the regulator is an awesome regulator. They're trying their best. Like, let's not give them more work to do. Just worrying about keeping the system safe is enough work. We can all get together, put one person on our teams on it, and we're happy to open source. I mean, we literally open up every single thing we build. Like, we don't have any proprietary, like, you know, algorithm somewhere that no one can actually access, and we keep it reasonable. So we're happy to give whatever we have to some open platform, once it's fully built. But, I think the key thing is for us to be able to collaborate and say, can we work on this thing together rather than, getting the regulator involved, because it's not necessary.
Thanks very much. And I think that's what Techfest is all about. It's about collaboration. So as we heard at the beginning, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go very far, go together. Come to Techfest 2019. Thanks very much. That's the end of the panel.